Iteration statements, also known as loops, can be found in many programming languages. These statements repeatedly execute any code contained within them, either until a condition is no longer met or you manually break out of them. Hi, I'm Victor, and today in Height Above Sea Level, we'll be looking at iteration statements in C#. Before we get started, if you want to talk more about this kind of thing, be sure to follow me on Twitch at Height Above Sea Level, where I do some live coding sessions as well as try and answer some of your questions as best I can. Some of the contents of this video will touch on the concepts I covered in the conditional statements and operators videos. So if you feel lost at any point in this one, watch those videos first, and I will link them to the top right of your screen. Alright, loops. There are 4 types of loops in C#. We have the for loop, we have the for each, we have the while, and we have the do while loops. Now, each of these can be used interchangeably depending on the scenario, but for the most part, they're very, very similar. And we'll start things off with the for loop. So, for loop. This is how you declare a for loop. And for all these loops, there's a long way. But if you've been watching the videos that I've been putting out, then you'll learn that there are code snippets for these loops as well. And I will show those to you as well. So let me start by doing it the long way. So write for, and then you write a parentheses. Now the thing about a for loop is it consists of 3 stages or 3 sections. We have the initializer section, we have the condition, and then we have the iterator. Now, those go inside here. Okay, the initializer. This is where you initialize a variable that determines how long, or is the variable that will be changed, and this will determine how many times the loop is executed. So we can say int, set that equal to 0, semicolon. That's the first section, or we can call int I. Most of the time you'll see the initializer is a variable called I. And then the second part is the condition. So as long as I is less than, let's say, 5, this loop is going to continue to execute as long as this I is less than 5. But you see I is 0. So how do we make sure that I changes? Because if it's I is 0 all the time, it's always going to be less than 5. And that means this loop will execute infinitely. This is where the iterator part comes in. We say I plus plus. Remember the increment operator, this one? It's in the operators video, so if you're confused about it, check that video out first. And then from here, curly braces, and then whatever you want to do goes in here. And just like before, remember in variables, I'm explicitly declaring this as an int. You can also even say var, and it will infer. The compiler will look at this and say, oh, this looks like a number, so I'm going to use an int. Most of the time, this will be an integer. So let's look at this. Let's read this again. So the initializer, I is equals to 0, so the loop starts at 0. As long as I is less than 5, we execute what's in here. And then after we execute what's in here, we add 1 to I. So let me show you this on the console. So let's say, I'm going to try it on the console. Hello world. Now, this is going to write on the console 5 times because we start at I is equals to 0. Is I less than 5? Yes. Write on the console, hello world, and then add 1 to I. So I now is equals to 1. Is 1 less than 5? Yes. Write this on the console again. Execute this line of code again. Then I add 1. Is I is now 2. Less than 5? Yes. Execute. Add 1 again. I is now 3. Is 3 less than 5? Yes. Execute. And so on and so forth. And so if I press Control and F5, give it a second, it's building. Hello world is returned 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this condition is what determines how many times we will write this on the console, or we'll execute this line of code. And I can even duplicate this with Control+D and say this is another line being executed, like that. If I press Control and F5, you see this is executed. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You see the loop went 5 times. I can have a lot of things in here. I can even do this. I can have tons of lines of code in here and it'll execute 5 times as long as I is less than 5. So I starts at 0. Is it less than 5? Execute this, add 1. But when we get to 4, or when we get to 5, is 5, it'll say is 5 less than 0? No, don't execute this. And that means don't add 1 to this. That's the end of the loop. And that right there is a for loop in a nutshell. Real quick, if you're enjoying the content, please consider supporting me over on Patreon at patreon.com/height above sea level, and you will get this custom Sakura theme as a thank you from me. So if you're enjoying the content, please subscribe or consider supporting me over on Patreon, and I will give you all the instructions of setting up these colors for your Visual Studio Editor, and your code editor will look just like mine. All right, let's move on to a for each loop. Now, let me just write all the loops here. There's a for, there's the for each, there's the while, and there's the do while. Now, out of all these loops, the for each loop is special because it doesn't require a condition to execute. The for loop, the while, and the do while all require a condition to execute. As you can see here, this condition has to be true, a Boolean value. It has to be true in order for this to execute. And you can put any other Boolean value here, like we saw in the Booleans video. Anything that returns a Boolean, true or false, can be used as a condition for this loop to execute. But for a for each loop always execute, or I can write this here, doesn't require condition to execute. And this is very useful when you're working with collections, which I'm going to introduce today, something known as array. An array is a type of collection, and we use for each loop to loop over collections. We can't use a condition like this, so we have to loop over something, and that's where an array comes in. Now let me just show you how to declare an array. Let's say you want an array of numbers, meaning you want a collection or a group of numbers stored in one place. So you write the type and then you use square brackets. Every time you see these square brackets, that means it's an array. And then the name of the array, we call it number, equals to a new int, then square brackets. Remember, this new means we're creating an instance of an array. And I will look to cover this hopefully in the classes video. So if you're looking forward to that, or you're interested in learning about this new keyword, consider subscribing to the channel, and then we'll look at that in the classes video, God willing. So after you say new int, where do you put the numbers? Curly braces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, semicolon. So now we have a collection of numbers. Numbers here is a collection that has 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now back to for each. We're going to loop over these numbers and write each one of them on the console. But before I do that, I remember showing you this for loop. The short way of writing it is just writing for, tab twice. Then you see first it's on the I here. If you press tab again, it goes to the condition. You can write for, and then from there, if you press enter, now you're inside the loop. Again, just write for, and then tab twice, and it'll write that for you. Okay, so now that we've seen that, let's look at the for each loop. For each is declared this way. So you say for each, and then the type of the collection. You see, this is an integer. So this value here, the type of that we're looping over, has to be of the same type as this one. So if you say for each number in numbers, and you can see it also works well with even just English. So for each number in numbers, you can read it in like a sentence. What do we want to do? We want to write on the console that number. So we're going to loop through all these numbers and we're going to write each number on the console. So on the first loop, let's say for this first number, we're in the first number. Execute this line of code. Second line, second number, execute this line of code for that one. This one, execute this line of code for that one. This one, execute this line of code for that one, and so on and so forth. I can comment this out with Control K, Control C, and then Control and F5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You see? Let me write with an arrow here just so you remember. We went through all of these and we executed them. We wrote them on the console. Even if I change this to 10, 22, 53, 74, and 85. Those will be written on the console: 10, 22, 53, 74, 85. And the thing is, you can even do some other things to them. Like you can say, let me take these back to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can even write the console on the console number times 10. You can do some work in here. So you see, we're taking each number and multiplying it by 10. So that when you write on the console, what do you think will be shown? Let's see. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. We took these numbers and we performed this bit of code, and then we wrote it on the console. You can even do this for strings. So let's say string array, and IntelliCode is there helping me. I just press tab to save time. Now you see, same syntax. It looks just like the other one, but now in here we will have a collection of strings. So we'd say John, whoops, comma, and you see they're separated by commas. John, and we say Lisa, and then we say Tom, and then we say Haley. And remember your semicolon at the end to say it's the end of the statement. Now you can also make another for loop for each. Now the short way is doing for each, just like the for loop, for each, tab once, tab twice. Now you see you can also use the var, and this means we're letting the compiler decide. It'll look at this strings over here and it'll decide for us. So now let me do that again. For each, I can type, tap twice, the name of the each want to name the first name this. What's this? This is a name. I can call this names. This one over here can be anything, but just so it's easy to read, we'll say for each name in names. And I would recommend using this style for when you're using a for each, just so it's readable and you can remember it much better. So for each name in names, this is a name, this is a name, this is a name, this is a name. What do you want to do? We want to say, let's use the string interpolation. Hello, my name is name. There we go. If I press Control and F5. Hello, my name is John. Hello, my name is Lisa. Hello, my name is Tom. My name is Haley. So as you can see, with a for each, we're looping over a collection. We can't use a condition because it doesn't need a condition. It needs a collection. We loop over a collection. Here we're looping over the names collection. Here we're looping over the numbers collection. And then for this instance, we're just writing it on the console. And that right there is a for each loop. I hope I'm not going too fast, but if I am, you can ask the questions in the comments or over on Discord, and I will try my best to answer them. Okay, let's move on to the while loop. And I can comment this out to Control K, Control C. Now, the interesting thing about a while loop is it looks just like an if statement. The only difference is the if statement is replaced with the word while. Remember, an if statement is written like this. If true, you say right on the console, hi. And this will execute. But the thing with the loop, if you change this to while, then this now becomes a loop. But when using a while loop, you don't want to pass true as a condition, because that means the loop will always execute, and this line of code will always execute and lead to an endless loop. And if I press Control 5, you can see this. It's saying hi continuously and it'll never end until I decide to break manually. But that is ahead. Just give me a second. I will touch on breaking out of a loop in a second. But for now, let us look at a while loop. Okay, let's say age is equals to 9. Now, as long as age is less than 15, right on the console, I am, let's use string interpolation for this one. Remember, string interpolation, $, I am that age that will be looping over years old. So what do you think is going to be written on the console? We'll check its age. Oh, one more thing. At this point, age is 9 and it's less than 15. But you see the age is not changing, so this will also lead to an infinite loop. I press Control and F5. You see, because the age is never changing. So what we want to do now is we want to say age plus plus, like that. So that age after each cycle is age less than 15. Right on this, on the console, add 1 to age. Age is now 10. Age is now 10. So it's 10 less than 15. Write this, add 1 to it until we get to 15, and then the loop ends. And if I press Control and F5, now we won't see the infinite loop anymore. Now I'm 9, I am 10. You see we're adding 1 to age. I'm 11, 12, 13, 14. And the reason we don't include 15 is because by the time you get to 15, this condition is not true, so we won't try it on the console because 15 is not less than 15. So the condition is not met and none of this is executed. All right, that is the while loop in a nutshell. It's not very complicated. It's one of the simpler ones, but it also has similar semantics like the for loop. You see, we had to create a counter. Remember, in the for loop, there's an initializer section. So this is kind of like the initializer section, and then the condition, and then the iterator. You see, it's similar. So this lets you know that you can switch a while loop and a for loop and a do while. It all depends on what you want to achieve. But you don't have to do it this way. Depending on what you're working on, you will be doing different things and you will be declaring different types of loops. All right, let's look at the last one. Control K and Control C to comment this out. The do while loop. This is also commonly referred to or called the do loop, but it has a while keyword. That's why I'm calling it the do while. So this is how you declare the do while. You can press do, tab twice, or you can just write do curly braces like that, and then the condition goes over here. So let's use let's use the age again. So age is 19, or we can say age is 10. And as long as age is less than 15, whatever you write here will be executed. So for now, let's just write again, string interpolation, I am age years old. And again, what we'll do, we'll have to add age plus plus. Otherwise, the age will always be 10, and this will be an infinite loop. Again, I can show that to you. See, it's writing this. It's going to go on forever until we reach a point where the condition is no longer satisfied. So what's the difference between a do while loop and a do loop and a while loop? The do while loop means that the loop will execute at least once, even if this condition is not met. So I can put the age to be something like 102, and it will still write this piece of code. Control and F5 to show you that I'm 102 years old. But you see, the age is not less than 15. So technically, if this was a while loop, none of this will be executed. But since it's a do while loop, this will always be executed at least once, and then we check. So difference between a do while is a do loop. Do while executed, let me write that here. It's executed at least once. So it doesn't matter even if the condition is not satisfied. This is always going to be executed at least once. And then from there, it's just the same as a while loop. It checks is the condition met? If true, execute this block of code. Is condition met? True, execute this block of code. If this is false, this is not executed. And that right there is a do-while loop in a nutshell. Now, as I'm winding up, I'd like to talk about how to break out of a loop and how to skip to the next cycle. And we use the continue and break keywords. So let me comment this out. Control K, Control C. Now let's say you wanted to break out of the loop. Remember? While, if you said while true, and then you wrote on the console, help, I am stuck in a loop. See, this is going to go forever. But let's say you wanted to break out. Okay, this, you probably wouldn't use this, but let's say at some point you wanted to break out of the loop. How would you do this? You'll do this using what's known as a break keyword. So let me just make a counter here and say this is equals to 10. And then age, and say age plus plus or minus minus. You can also, yeah, you can also use minus minus and make it so that if age is less than 2, you stop. So age is 10. Is 10 less than 2? No, I can say less than something, whatever you want to do. So you can minus the age until we get to the point where this condition is no longer satisfied. And then from there, the loop ends. That is your homework. Try using the minus, the decrement operator like this and achieving the same result. And let me know how that goes in the comments below. But for sake of this demo, we're going to just use this just as a winding up, almost done. Now, so we add age, we add what do we add? We add 1 to age. So let's say 17, just so this loop isn't go on for too long. Now you see, age is 10. Is it greater than 17? No. Is it less than 17? Yes, we add 1 to it. But let's say you want to break when the age reaches something like 15. So what's going to happen here is we'll check, is the age less than 17? Okay, we write that. We add 1 to the age. And then we check if this is true. If it's true, then we break. If it's not, we ignore this bit of code and we go to the next cycle. Each cycle is also referred to as an iteration. And I can add that here. Each cycle is also referred to as an iteration. And you'll hear people or developers use this word iteration and over cycle or over the cycle that you're currently looping over. Just so you know this word. It's good to remember it. Now, is age less than, is 10 less than 17? Yes, right on the console, add 1 to it. Now we check, is it equal to 15? No, ignore this. But when we get to 15, this is going to be true. We'll break out of the loop and we won't write the age for 16, 17, or 18. I can say, instead of this, I can, just so you can see it better, I am age years old. Control and F5. You see, I am 10, I am 11, I am 12, I am 13, I am 14. But where's 15, 16? You see, we broke out of the loop. That means we said, once you get to 15, break. You can even do this to 13, 10, 11, 12. You see, as long as this is true, we'll break out of the loop. And this is helpful if you say you only want the loop to execute for a couple of things. And when it gets to a certain place, it stops. You can use the break statement, this break statement, with do while, for each, anything that is a loop you can break out of. But let's say when we get to 13, we don't want to write on the console. Right, we don't want to write on the console, I am 13 years old. We want to skip 13 and go to 14 and 15, 16, 17, and 16, we use the continue keyword. So that when you get to the cycle that has 13, we add 1 to it so that it's equals to 14, and then we continue. The reason we're adding 1 is because if we get to 13 and we skip, then nothing will still be at 13. Nothing's changed. Remember, age is what's determining if anything here is executed. But if age is still 13 and we don't add 1 to it, it'll be forever 13 and nothing will happen. So let's do Control and F5 to see this on the console. I am 10, I am 11, I am 12, but look, I am 14. 13 is missing because we said when we get to 13, continue. You skip that 13, as you can see, even while on the top here is highlighted, and then continue is highlighted. When you put your cursor over this, it lets you know which loop you're breaking out of, because you can also, just like in conditional statements, you can nest loops like this, and you can continue to nest loops like this if you want, but that's not recommended. Do it when you need to, but don't overdo it. Maybe 2-3 times, but don't overdo it. Try not to overdo it, because that makes it harder to maintain your code and to read for yourself. So again, 10, 11, 12, 13 is missing, but if you don't add 1 to 13, this is what happens. It's included. Even though you said to continue, it's still included. You have to add 1 to it. 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16. And that's the continue keyword. Maybe I can write here, skips current cycle / iteration. And that is it for loops. That's all I had for you guys. Did you enjoy this little demo? Well, not little, but kind of long, but I hope you still enjoyed it. Did you learn something new today? And have you used loops in other programming languages and are just coming to C# for the first time? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you did enjoy this, please consider supporting me over on Patreon, and you will get this custom Sakura theme that I came up with for Visual Studio, and I will show you how to set it up over on patreon.com/heightabovesea-level. Again, I stream on Twitch at heightabovesea-level. If you want to talk more about this kind of thing live on stream, and if that doesn't work, come hang out on Discord instead. Just click the link in the description below and become a member of the Water Tribe today. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, from me to you, deuces.